Hello everyone, and welcome to Dark Romance. Tonight's story is The Devil's Promise, an original dark romance filled with obsession, betrayal, hidden secrets, and a love tested by impossible choices. If you enjoy immersive audiobooks with unforgettable characters and cinematic storytelling, you're in the right place. Dim the lights, get comfortable, and let the story begin.
Rain draped over Florence, turning its ancient streets into rivers of reflected light. Isabella Moretti hurried home after another late evening restoring priceless paintings at the City Museum. Nights like this were usually peaceful, but tonight the silence felt wrong. A pair of footsteps echoed behind her. She slowed. The footsteps slowed. She crossed the street. They crossed too. Her pulse quickened. Ahead stood the abandoned Palazzo Bellini, its iron gate hanging open. She had used the courtyard as a shortcut before. Without thinking, she slipped inside, hoping to lose whoever was following her. The palace was dark except for a faint light spilling from a cracked doorway. Voices. Curiosity pulled her closer. Peering through the opening, Isabella saw 4 men in tailored black suits surrounding a terrified older man. She recognized him instantly from the news, Senator Vittorio Rinaldi. "You promised I would be protected," the senator pleaded. A tall man standing with his back to the door answered in a calm, emotionless voice. "You broke your promise first." The senator's hands trembled. "I had no choice. You always have a choice." A gunshot shattered the silence. The senator collapsed onto the marble floor. Isabella gasped. A loose stone shifted beneath her foot. The sound echoed through the hall. Every head turned. The tall man slowly faced the doorway. Even in the shadows, his cold gray eyes found hers. For one terrifying second, neither of them moved. Then he spoke. "Find her." Isabella ran. Rain soaked her clothes as she sprinted through narrow streets, her heart beat louder than the storm. Behind her came shouting, followed by the roar of engines. Black SUVs appeared from every direction. She ducked into an alley, desperate to escape, but a sleek black car rolled silently across the entrance, blocking her path. The rear door opened. A man stepped out wearing a perfectly tailored black coat. Tall, composed, dangerous. He looked at Isabella, then toward the men chasing her. Without hesitation, he drew a silenced pistol, 3 quiet shots. 3 pursuers collapsed. The alley fell silent. Isabella stared at him in horror. "Who are you?" she whispered. He met her frightened gaze. "Adrian De Luca." The name meant nothing to her. He stepped closer. "You saw something you were never supposed to see." I'm going to the police." A faint smile crossed his face. If you could trust the police, that senator would still be alive. Before Isabella could answer, tiny red dots appeared across the wall behind them, then one settled on her chest. Snipers. Adrian's expression didn't change. He opened the car door. "You have 2 choices," he said calmly. "Get in with me." Another laser appeared on her forehead. "Or die in this alley." Isabella's breath caught in her throat. The red laser remained fixed on her chest. She looked from the rooftops to Adrian, then back to the alley behind her. There was nowhere to run. A sharp crack echoed through the rain. A bullet struck the wall only inches from her head. Adrian grabbed her wrist and pulled her into the car. The driver accelerated before the door had fully closed. "Let me go," Isabella shouted, struggling against him. "If I wanted you dead," Adrian replied calmly, "I wouldn't have stopped for you." She reached for the door handle. Locked. The city lights disappeared behind tinted windows as the car sped into the night. "Where are you taking me?" "Somewhere they can't find you." "I don't even know who they are." "You will." His short answers only fueled her anger. "You killed those men." "They would have killed you." Silence settled between them. For the first time, Isabella studied him. He looked calm, almost emotionless, as though gunfire and death were nothing new. A faint scar crossed his right eyebrow, giving him an even colder appearance. "Why save me?" she finally asked. Adrian looked out the window. "Because you weren't the target." She frowned. "You are now." The word sent a chill through her. Hours later, the car left the highway and climbed a winding mountain road. Hidden behind towering pines stood a massive stone estate surrounded by iron gates. The gates opened without a sound. The car rolled into the courtyard. Before Isabella could react, Adrian stepped out and opened her door. "I'm not staying here. You don't have a choice." She shoved him aside and ran, across the courtyard, toward the front gate. She almost reached it. A deep growl stopped her. A massive black German shepherd emerged from the shadows, blocking the path. The dog didn't attack. It simply stood there, watching. Behind her, Adrian's voice remained steady. "His name is Nero." The dog walked to Adrian's side and sat obediently. "He only listens to me." Isabella slowly stepped back. "You keep guard dogs too?" "I keep survivors alive." She wanted to argue, but exhaustion finally caught up with her. A maid quietly led her inside. The mansion was silent, filled with antique paintings and long candle-lit hallways. As Isabella entered her room, she noticed there were no bars on the windows, no locked doors. Maybe she could still escape. Just before closing the door, the elderly maid whispered, "Miss." Isabella turned. The woman's face had gone pale. "Whatever you hear tonight," she lowered her voice, "don't open your door." The lights suddenly flickered. Somewhere deep inside the mansion, a woman screamed. Isabella shot upright in bed. The scream echoed through the mansion, then vanished as suddenly as it had begun. She waited. Nothing. Only the wind rattled the old windows. The maid's warning echoed in her mind. "Don't open your door." She hesitated, then quietly turned the handle. The hallway was empty. Moonlight spilled across polished wooden floors, revealing a long corridor lined with portraits. Their painted eyes seemed to follow her as she walked. Another sound, a faint metallic clang. It came from downstairs. Curiosity overcame fear. She followed the noise to a large staircase and paused. At the far end of the hall, Adrian stood speaking with two armed men. "The search has reached the city," one of them said. "They've checked her apartment," the other added. "They'll come here next." Adrian remained calm. "Let them." "And the witness?" His eyes lifted toward the staircase. "I'll deal with her myself." Isabella stepped back before he could see her. Her heart pounded. She hurried down another corridor, searching for another exit. Instead, she found a heavy iron door. A rusty chain hung across it. Above the frame was a faded sign. "West Wing locked." She reached out to touch the handle. "Curiosity is dangerous." Adrian's voice came from behind her. She spun around. "What is this place?" "A part of the house that stays closed." "Because of what?" He didn't answer. Instead, he walked past her and checked the chain. "Get some sleep." "I'm not your prisoner." "No." He looked at her for a long moment. "You're the reason this house is about to become a battlefield." Before Isabella could respond, a distant engine echoed outside, then another. Headlights swept across the windows. Someone had found the estate. The mansion's alarm shattered the silence. A deep bell echoed through the halls. Every light flickered on. Men in black suits rushed past Isabella, loading rifles as they took positions at the windows. Outside, headlights surrounded the estate, at least 6 vehicles. "They found us," one guard shouted. Adrian remained perfectly still. "Lock the gates. They'll break through." "I know." He turned to Isabella. "Stay inside. I'm not hiding while people are trying to kill me." "They aren't here for me." His gray eyes locked onto hers. "They're here for you." A deafening explosion shook the front entrance. The iron gates burst open. Black-clad attackers poured into the courtyard. Gunfire erupted. Bullets shattered windows, sending glass across the marble floor. Instinctively, Isabella dropped behind a stone pillar. Her hands trembled. This couldn't be real. She had been restoring paintings yesterday. Now she was trapped in the middle of a private war. An attacker slipped through a side entrance. He spotted Isabella immediately. "There she is." He raised his weapon. Before he could fire, a single shot rang out. The attacker collapsed. Adrian lowered his pistol. "Move." He grabbed Isabella's hand and pulled her through a hidden doorway behind the staircase. The passage was narrow and lit only by old lanterns. Stone walls closed around them as explosions echoed above. "You built secret tunnels?" Isabella asked, struggling to keep up. "My family did." They hurried deeper underground until they reached a heavy wooden door. Adrian pushed it open. Inside was a forgotten library filled with dusty books and ancient maps. For the first time since the attack began, he stopped. Then he looked directly at Isabella. "They won't stop coming." "Who are they?" He took a slow breath. "The people who murdered your father." Isabella froze. "My father died in a car accident." Adrian's expression never changed. "That's what they wanted you to believe." Isabella stared at Adrian in disbelief. "You're lying." "I wish I were. My father died 15 years ago. He was murdered." She shook her head. "No. I saw the police report. So did everyone else." Adrian walked to an old wooden desk and unlocked a drawer. He placed a faded photograph in front of her. It showed a younger man standing beside her father. The younger man was Adrian. "No," Isabella whispered. "You knew him?" "I met him once," Adrian said quietly. "The night before he died." Her hands trembled as she picked up the photo. "My father never mentioned you." "He couldn't." "Why?" "Because he was protecting you." Before Isabella could ask another question, Adrian unfolded a yellowed envelope. "It's the last thing your father gave me." She stared at the familiar handwriting. It was unmistakably her father's. With shaking fingers, she opened the letter. Only one sentence was written inside. "If anything happens to me, protect Isabella. Trust no one." A tear rolled down her cheek. This can't be real." "It is." Silence filled the hidden library. Everything she believed about her past was beginning to crumble. Then a loud crash echoed through the tunnel. One of Adrian's guards burst into the room, breathing heavily. "They've broken through the west wing." Adrian's eyes narrowed. "How many?" "Too many." The guard swallowed hard. "And they have someone with them." "Who?" "The man leading them." He hesitated. "Calls himself the judge." For the first time since they met, Adrian's calm expression disappeared. "You need to hide," he said. "Now." The color drained from Adrian's face. Isabella noticed it immediately. "You know him?" Adrian nodded once. "I hoped I'd never see him again." Another explosion shook the underground library. Dust drifted from the stone ceiling. The guard tightened his grip on his rifle. "They're searching every room." Adrian turned to Isabella. "Whatever happens, don't let him see your face." Who is he? The man who gives death a reason. Before she could ask another question, Adrian led her deeper into the tunnels. They stopped before a narrow passage hidden behind a bookshelf. "This leads outside the estate," he said. "You should come with me." "I can't. They're here because of me." He gave a faint smile. "They're here because they're afraid of what you know." Footsteps echoed through the tunnel. Closer, voices followed. "Search everywhere." Adrian handed Isabella a small silver key. "If we get separated, keep this safe." "What does it open?" "The only proof that can destroy them." The footsteps stopped just beyond the library door. A shadow appeared beneath it. Someone was standing outside. A slow knock echoed through the room. 3 calm knocks, then a voice. "Adrian," sounded almost friendly. "You've been hiding for far too long." The handle slowly turned. The library door creaked open. A tall man stepped inside, dressed in a dark suit and black leather gloves. His silver hair was neatly combed, and his calm smile made him even more unsettling. His eyes settled on Adrian. "It's been a long time." Adrian didn't lower his gun. "Not long enough." The man chuckled. "You've always been difficult." Isabella remained hidden behind the bookshelf, clutching the silver key. The stranger slowly walked across the room. "I came for the witness." "She's not here," Adrian replied. "I expected that answer." The man stopped beside the old desk, his fingers brushing over the letter Isabella had just read. "So, you finally told her the truth." Adrian's silence was enough. The stranger smiled again. "How disappointing." Without warning, he pulled out a pistol. Adrian fired first. The shot grazed the man's shoulder. Guards rushed into the room, and gunfire erupted. "Go!" Adrian shouted. Isabella didn't hesitate. She slipped into the narrow passage behind the bookshelf and ran. The tunnel twisted beneath the mountain. Behind her, the sounds of gunfire faded into the distance. Then she heard another sound. Footsteps. Someone else was in the tunnel. She stopped. A flashlight flickered ahead. A voice whispered from the darkness. "Miss Moretti." It wasn't Adrian. "I've been looking for you." Isabella's heart pounded. The flashlight moved closer. An elderly man stepped from the darkness, dressed in dusty work clothes. His hands were empty. "Don't be afraid," he said quietly. "I know who you are." Isabella took a cautious step back. "Who are you?" "My name is Marco. I've taken care of these tunnels for 30 years. She tightened her grip on the silver key. "If you work for Adrian, prove it." Marco reached into his pocket and held out a worn photograph. It showed a young Isabella sitting on her father's shoulders in a park. She had never seen the picture before. "Where did you get this?" "Your father gave it to me. He said if anything happened to him, one day I'd meet you." Isabella's eyes filled with confusion. "Everyone keeps saying my father knew this would happen." Marco nodded sadly. "He made many enemies trying to expose the truth." A distant gunshot echoed through the tunnel. Marco looked toward the sound. "We have to move." He led her through a narrow stone passage until they reached an old iron ladder. Above them was a wooden hatch. "Where does this lead?" "A chapel." Marco pushed the hatch open. Cold morning air rushed inside. The abandoned chapel stood in silence, hidden among towering pine trees. For a moment, Isabella believed they had escaped. Then she noticed fresh tire tracks outside. Marco's expression changed. "They're already here." A shadow appeared in the chapel doorway. Someone slowly applauded. "Impressive," the voice said. "But the game is over." A man in a dark overcoat stepped into the chapel. He wasn't one of Adrian's guards. He wasn't the judge. He looked younger, calm. and strangely familiar. "I finally found you, Isabella." She backed away. "Who are you?" "My name is Luca." Marco's face hardened. "You shouldn't be here." Luca ignored him. "I'm not your enemy." He slowly raised both hands to show he carried no weapon. "I came to help." Isabella laughed bitterly. "Everyone says that. And yet, everyone keeps pointing guns at you." She couldn't argue. Luca reached into his coat and removed a folded newspaper. The front page carried a large photograph. "Art Conservator, killed in mountain fire." Below the headline was Isabella's picture. She stared at it in shock. "I'm dead?" Luca nodded. "The world believes you died last night." Marco cursed under his breath. "The judge moved faster than we expected." "If everyone thinks I'm dead," Isabella whispered, "then why are they still hunting me?" Luca looked directly into her eyes. "Because you're carrying something they can't afford to lose." His gaze dropped to her hand. "The silver key. You don't even know what it opens, do you?" Before Isabella could answer, a gunshot shattered the chapel window. The bullet struck the wall inches from Luca's head. Another shot followed, then another. Outside, engines roared through the forest. Luca drew a pistol and looked at Isabella. "They found us." He pointed toward a narrow path behind the chapel. "Run." The three of them ran into the forest. Branches whipped across Isabella's face as gunfire echoed behind them. After several minutes, Luca stopped before a weathered stone cabin hidden among the trees. "It looks abandoned," Isabella said. "It is," Marco replied. "At least, that's what everyone believes." Luca unlocked the front door. Inside, the cabin was nearly empty except for an old fireplace and a wooden table. He walked to the fireplace and pulled on an iron hook. A section of the floor slid open. A narrow staircase disappeared into the darkness. "What is this?" Isabella asked. "A vault." They descended into a small underground room lined with shelves of old files and metal boxes. Luca pointed to a heavy steel safe. "The key." Isabella hesitated. "If I open it, I want the truth. You'll have it." She inserted the silver key. The lock clicked. Inside wasn't money or jewelry. It was a single leather folder. Marco opened it carefully. Photographs, bank records, secret agreements, and a list of powerful names. At the very top was one name that made Luca fall silent. Adrian De Luca. Isabella looked up in disbelief. "Why is his name here?" Before anyone could answer, they heard footsteps above. The cabin door creaked open. A familiar voice echoed through the floorboards. "She's here." It was Adrian, but he wasn't alone. The room fell silent. Isabella stared at Adrian's name printed across the first page. "You lied to me," she whispered. Luca closed the folder. "It's not that simple." "Then explain." Before he could answer, Adrian's voice echoed from above. "Isabella." He sounded calm. "Come out. We need to leave." Marco looked toward the ceiling. "They're searching the cabin." Luca drew his pistol. "If he comes down here, don't trust a word he says." The hidden door opened. Heavy footsteps descended the stairs. Adrian appeared at the bottom, alone. His eyes went straight to the folder in Isabella's hands. "So, you found it." She held it tighter. "Your name is on this list." "I know. You admitted it." "I wrote it." The word stunned everyone. Luca aimed his gun. "You finally decided to tell her?" Adrian ignored him. "That list contains every person who helped build the organization." "You included yourself?" "I had to." "Why?" "So one day," Adrian looked at Isabella, "someone could destroy all of us." A loud click echoed behind them. Another hidden door had opened. A dozen armed men entered the vault. At their front stood the judge. He smiled. Now everyone is exactly where I wanted them. The judge stepped into the vault, his polished shoes echoing across the stone floor. His men surrounded the room, rifles raised. No one moved. The judge smiled at Isabella. "You've caused quite a bit of trouble." She didn't answer. His eyes shifted to the leather folder in her hands. "Give it to me." Adrian took one step forward. "No," the judge sighed. "I wasn't speaking to you." He looked back at Isabella. "You've been lied to since the beginning. Adrian recruited your father, and your father paid the price." Isabella turned to Adrian. "Is that true?" For the first time he hesitated. "Yes." The word hit her harder than any bullet. "You said you were protecting him." "I tried, but he still died." Adrian lowered his eyes. "I failed." The judge laughed softly. "You see, he isn't the hero you imagined." He extended his hand toward Isabella. "Come with me. I'll let the others live." Luca shook his head. "Don't listen to him." The judge's smile disappeared. "Last chance." Before Isabella could answer, she looked at the folder, then at Adrian. Finally, she made her decision. With all her strength, she threw the folder into the fireplace, burning at the far end of the vault. Flames swallowed the papers. The judge's expression froze. "No!" His men rushed toward the fire. Adrian seized the moment. "Run!" Gunfire exploded through the vault as Isabella followed Adrian into a narrow escape passage hidden behind the flames. Behind them, the judge's furious voice echoed through the smoke. "You can burn the papers, but you can't burn the truth." The tunnels shook as explosions echoed behind them. Smoke poured through the narrow passage. "Keep moving!" Adrian shouted. Isabella stumbled over the uneven stone floor, barely keeping up. Ahead, daylight spilled through a crack in the rock. They rushed outside onto the edge of a steep cliff overlooking the valley. For a brief moment, everything was silent. Then bullets struck the rocks around them. The judge's men had followed. "There!" someone yelled. Adrian returned fire, forcing them to take cover. "We need to get down the mountain," Isabella said. "There isn't enough time." Another bullet shattered the cliff beside them. The ground beneath Isabella's feet suddenly cracked. She slipped. "Adrian!" Without thinking, he lunged forward and caught her wrist. She dangled over the edge, hundreds of feet above the rocks below. His grip tightened. "Don't let go," she whispered. "I won't." More gunfire erupted. A bullet struck the stone beside Adrian, throwing dust into his eyes. His fingers began to slip. "Take my hand," he shouted. She reached upward with her free hand. Just as their fingers touched, another shot rang out. The cliff gave way beneath Adrian. Both of them plunged into the rushing river below. The icy water swallowed them whole. Far above, the judge walked to the edge of the cliff and looked into the roaring current. He smiled. "No one survives that fall." He turned away, convinced the hunt was finally over. Isabella woke, coughing. Cold river water burned in her lungs. She opened her eyes to find herself lying beside a small fire inside an old wooden cabin. Rain tapped softly against the roof. She sat up in panic. "Adrian?" No answer. Then she saw him. He was unconscious on the floor, his shoulders stained with blood. The bullet had grazed him during the escape. Isabella rushed to his side. His breathing was weak but steady. She found a small medical kit on a shelf and carefully cleaned the wound. When the cold cloth touched his skin, Adrian slowly opened his eyes. "You should have left me," he murmured. "I thought you said I wouldn't survive without you." A faint smile appeared on his face. "For once, you didn't listen." Outside, thunder rolled across the mountains. The storm had washed away their tracks. For the first time since they met, there was no gunfire, no guards, no running, only silence. Isabella looked into the fire. My father. Did he know he was going to die? Adrian nodded. He knew the risk. Why didn't he run? Because he believed the truth was worth more than his life. She wiped away a tear. I never got to say goodbye. You don't have to. She looked at him. He was proud of you. Before she could reply, the cabin door creaked open. A little girl, no older than 10, stood in the doorway, soaked by the rain. She stared at Adrian. Then she whispered, They're coming. Behind her, several headlights appeared through the trees. The little girl stood frozen in the doorway, breathing hard. They're 5 minutes away, she whispered. Adrian forced himself to his feet despite the pain in his shoulder. Emma, how did you find us? I saw the black cars on the road. She pointed toward the forest. They're searching every cabin. Isabella frowned. You know her? Adrian nodded. She's the daughter of one of my former guards. Emma lowered her eyes. My father never came home. A brief silence filled the room. Adrian gently rested a hand on her shoulder. I'm sorry. He picked up his pistol and looked through the window. Headlights moved slowly between the trees. They're getting closer. Emma reached into her coat and handed Adrian a folded map. I found another way down the mountain. He unfolded it. An old trail led to a deserted railway station hidden deep in the valley. They'll never expect us to go there, Adrian said. Outside, car doors slammed shut. Voices echoed through the forest. Spread out! Search every building! Adrian turned to Isabella. We leave through the back. The three of them slipped into the rain just as armed men surrounded the cabin. They had almost reached the tree line when a bright spotlight swept across the hillside. There! Someone shouted. Gunfire erupted. Adrian pushed Isabella and Emma behind a fallen log. A bullet struck the map in his hand, tearing it in half. He stared at the damaged route. The only safe path was gone. Adrian led Isabella and Emma through the forest, relying on memory instead of the torn map. After nearly an hour, the trees opened onto an abandoned railway station. Rust covered the tracks. The platform was empty. It hasn't been used for years, Isabella said. That's why it's safe, Adrian replied. Emma suddenly pointed toward an old ticket office. The door's open. Adrian frowned. It shouldn't be. He motioned for them to stay behind and slowly stepped inside. The room was deserted. On the dusty counter lay a single envelope. His name was written across the front. Adrian. He opened it. Inside was a short handwritten message. You always choose the same hiding places. No signature. Only a black chess king drawn beneath the words. Adrian's expression darkened. The judge. Isabella looked around nervously. He's been here? Before anyone could move, the station speakers crackled to life. A distorted voice echoed across the empty platform. Good evening, Adrian. Emma covered her ears. The voice continued. I knew you'd bring her here. Adrian searched the rooftops. Show yourself. A soft laugh answered him. I don't need to. The old rails began to vibrate. In the distance, a train horn echoed through the valley. Isabella stared in disbelief. I thought this line was abandoned. It was, Adrian said quietly. It isn't anymore. A black train emerged from the fog, and it wasn't slowing down. The train screeched to a stop. Its windows were black. No passengers, no markings, only silence. The doors slid open. A man in a dark suit stepped onto the platform. He bowed politely. "Mr. De Luca." Adrian didn't lower his gun. "What do you want?" "I'm only delivering a message." He held out a small wooden box. "For Miss Moretti." Isabella hesitated. "Don't touch it," Adrian warned. The man placed the box on the platform and stepped back. "My job is finished." Without another word, he boarded the train. The doors closed. Seconds later, the train disappeared into the fog as quietly as it had arrived. Emma stared after it. "That was creepy." Adrian slowly approached the box. He checked it for wires. Nothing. He opened the lid. Inside was an old pocket watch. Isabella's breath caught. It was my father's. She recognized the tiny scratch on the silver cover. Beneath the watch lay a folded note. She opened it. Her hands began to shake. "What does it say?" Adrian asked. She looked up, pale. "It's from my father." The note contained only one sentence. "The traitor has always been beside you." Silence filled the station. Adrian and Luca. One of them had been with her from the beginning. One of them had lied. Then Emma pointed behind them. They turned. Luca stood at the far end of the platform. He wasn't alone. Behind him were armed men. Luca slowly raised his hands. The armed men behind him lowered their rifles. "They're with me," he said. Adrian didn't move. "That's exactly what worries me." Isabella stepped between them. "My father's note said the traitor has always been beside me." Luca nodded. "I know. Then tell me who it is." Before he could answer, one of the men behind him spoke. "Vehicles approaching." Engines echoed through the valley. The judge's convoy. "We're out of time," Adrian said. Luca reached into his coat and removed a small flash drive. "This is what your father died protecting." He handed it to Isabella. "It contains every recording, every payment, every name." The folder was only a copy. Isabella stared at it. "So the evidence still exists?" "Yes." Adrian looked at Luca. "Why didn't you tell us?" "Because I didn't know who to trust." The sound of tires grew louder. Headlights swept across the station. The judge stepped from the lead vehicle, smiling as if he'd already won. "You've made this much harder than it needed to be." He looked directly at Isabella. "Give me the flash drive." She tightened her grip. "No." The judge sighed. "I was hoping you'd say that." He snapped his fingers. Two guards dragged a frightened prisoner from a vehicle. Marco, bruised but alive. The judge pressed a pistol against Marco's head. "One life." He smiled coldly. "Or the truth." Marco stood on his knees, blood running down the side of his face. The judge kept the pistol against his head. "Decide." Isabella's hands trembled around the flash drive. Adrian quietly whispered, "Don't give it to him. He'll kill Marco." "He'll kill him anyway." The judge smiled. "Time is running out." Marco looked at Isabella and managed a weak smile. "Your father made me promise." He struggled to breathe. "That the truth would survive." A tear rolled down Isabella's cheek. "I can't." "You can." Marco slowly closed his eyes. "Finish what he started." The judge pulled back the hammer of his pistol. "Last chance." Before Isabella could answer, Adrian stepped forward. "Take me instead." The judge laughed. "You still think your life has value?" "It does to you." For the first time, the judge's smile faded. Adrian had guessed correctly. The judge wanted him alive. Adrian looked at Isabella. His voice was calm. "When I tell you, run." She shook her head. "I'm not leaving you." "You promised you'd trust me." A long second passed. Then Adrian fired. Chaos erupted. Guards scattered as bullets filled the station. Adrian tackled the judge, knocking the pistol from his hand. "Go!" he shouted. Luca grabbed Isabella and Emma. They sprinted toward the forest. Behind them, a single gunshot echoed through the valley. Then everything went silent. Isabella stopped. She turned back. Adrian was lying motionless on the platform. "No!" Isabella broke free from Luca and ran back to the platform. Adrian lay on the ground, blood staining his shirt. The judge was gone. So were his men. Only silence remained. Isabella dropped to her knees beside Adrian. "You can't leave me." A faint smile appeared on his lips. "I told you," he coughed, "I'd keep my promise." Sirens echoed in the distance. Luca looked toward the road. "The police are coming." Adrian shook his head. "No, the real police." Isabella frowned. "What do you mean?" Luca held up his phone. "I sent the flash drive 10 minutes ago." "To who?" "Everyone." Within minutes, police vehicles surrounded the station. Not corrupt officers, investigators from the National Anti-Corruption Unit. The flash drive had exposed years of murders, bribery, and hidden accounts. Across the country, powerful people were being arrested. The organization was collapsing. Weeks later, the judge's face appeared on every news channel, the most wanted fugitive in Europe. No one knew where he had disappeared. Spring arrived in Florence. The museum reopened. Life slowly returned to normal. One afternoon, Isabella stood before a newly restored painting. A familiar voice spoke behind her. "You missed one small crack." She turned. Adrian, alive. His shoulder was wrapped in a sling, but he was smiling. "I thought you were dead." "I've survived worse." She laughed through happy tears. "So, what now?" He walked beside her. No more lies, no more running. She slipped her hand into his, and no more promises. Adrian looked into her eyes. Only one. Which one? That this time, our future belongs to us.
Thank you for listening to The Devil's Promise. If you enjoyed this original dark romance, please leave a like, subscribe to Dark Romance, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new audiobook. Let me know in the comments which character was your favorite and what kind of dark romance you'd like to hear next. Until next time, sleep well, and remember, not every promise is meant to save you.